and because they're all square and I ripped them down to the same width, all the backs are pretty good. They aren't fixed in yet, so I'll be able to tap them a bit closer, but they're all very good. That's sometimes a problem when they're sticking out and the backs don't go hard up. And because I've put screws in here and there, I'm going to number these. Then the screws will go back in the same holes. So that's all taken to bits, and I'll just show you on this temporarily. I just put a piece of 2B1 in the middle there to support it. Where this sits, there's going to be gripper rod, you know, for the edge of the carpet, and then the skirting. So I don't really know how that's going to work out, but one way or the other I'm going to put a longer piece in. I might have to rip it down so that the base sits level. I'm not looking for a high quality finish, but 120 grit seems to be working fine. Any little planing marks have gone. Like I say, I'm just going to sand the edges, sand the Harris off, and these edges, if you use the belt sander on that, it'll just rip the blade off, rip the disc off. So I'll do that by hand. These edges, I'm just going to run the sandpaper along. I'm not going to try and round them over, but I'm just going to run the sandpaper along, lose any breakout. Same with these fronts, just a tickle with some 120. So they're all sanded. You see, I've just taken the edge off, just taken the ice off. Most of it got done with 120. There's one or two bits where the snipe was. I went with a 60 grit. Then I went over it with 120. Any scratches in these bits of wood, stain tends to show that, so it even shows the little circles that come from these sanders. But I'm sure it'll be fine. Like I say, I'm not after a high-end finish. Now on these boards, I'm just sanding the pencil marks off, but I'm careful not to go too far, because that'll affect how the boards sit on there. There's a few bits like this. There's one on the top here, left. See that knot there? I could fill them, but I'm not gonna. I quite like the honesty of that. So I'm just gonna leave them. Right, and finally this is the base. And I realised while sanding that when I sand off these marks, this board could, you know, I could put it either way because the cuts are off centre. So for this one, on the back, I'm going to make a couple of marks. Might as well mark them all. That way when I start stacking, this will be the first one and I'll get these right. So those are all sanded now, ready to start spraying, stain, lacquer. I get asked sometimes about my spray setup. Now I've got a 50 litre Boss Stitch compressor. It's only just big enough for what I do. You can hear it going sometimes in the background. But from it, there's two outlets. One outlet is this black hose here, runs along there and to the compressor that's next door. That one came with the compressor. You see it's starting to break down. See the cracks in it, but that just runs here. I used that one simply because it reached there. The other outlet from the compressor, they're both on full pressure. The other outlet's this clear pipe. Comes around, feeds that. I did have a connection there. See it? There somewhere. There, that one. That now goes next door. I did have it for blowing this down, but I never used it. So now it goes next door into me metal shed. Got a T-junction there that comes down to this regulator. It's a filter regulator. It's set at about, it's hard to see, it's set at about 25 to 30 psi. Then from there is this pipe that I use for spraying. This is food grade pipe, it's really good as this stuff. I'll see if I can find the name for it. But because it's food grade, you know it's free of oil or anything like that that they made it with. And when I bought this pipe and all the connections and everything, I've only ever used it for spraying, so I know it's clean. My spray guns range, this is my favourite, the Devil Bliss. It's 2 or 3 times the price of any of the other guns, but it's worth it. It's my favourite. And I've got a couple of ANIs. That one's quite good. These are only about 24 quid, but I still use them. They're fairly good. That's a cheap, crappy thing, but I use each gun for different things. That's basically it. Nothing special. 50 litre compressor, regulator filter, set at about 25 to 30. When you pull the trigger it goes down to about 25. This hose here, it leaks, but I have this on the end of it. This filter, it's leaking, so I need to get a new one. But this means that when I blow stuff down, I'm not blowing any oil that comes from the compressor, because that pipe doesn't have a filter built in like the one that I spray with. Yes, it's dusty in here, I don't fucking care. If you've seen my vids, then you'll know that I get a fairly good finish. I still get a few little bits, but what I do is blow everything down, and I sort of blow the immediate area down. Most of this is encrusted, it don't go anywhere. I blow everything down, put the fan on up there, that extracts airborne particles. And if I've been cutting next door or whatever, I might even leave it overnight before I start spraying. Then next morning all I do is spray down my pieces. My hardest problem is roof. When it's windy, that's why I've got a board up there that sticks out a bit. So any bits falling down don't land immediately on there. When I spray, I take off the top one, spray that, put it on, then work my way down. So when I'm dragging it out, any bits that might be on the rack don't fall on fresh paint. Got to go out in a few hours, so I'm going to get some stain on these. Hardest thing about staining these is I'll get overspray on the front, and when I spray the other side I'll get some more stain on there, and I don't want the fronts to be darker. You know, I don't want it to look like they've got 2 coats on. These, when I paint these sort of things, I quite often, the backs don't get painted, I quite often stand them like that on, these will do, I quite often stand them, pin them to the back on little pieces of wood like that, so that I can turn them around, you know, spray both sides. Just have a stack of these. I can spray one, move it to one side. But there's 25 here. That means I need to cut 50 little pieces of wood. I don't want to do that. So I'm considering laying them out, but same again. I'll be spraying one side and it'll overspray onto the front. I don't want to double up. So we'll see. Plus, I don't know if I can lay out all 25 on here. We'll see. But because I've just finished sanding, everything's going to get blown down now. Left for a few hours. Before I forget, I mentioned that black pipe. Where it's not in the sun it's fine, but up there where the light gets it, it's starting to break down. But this pipe's better, this reinforced stuff. It's been up there for quite a while, no problem with it. These clips, I put Jubilee clips, normal Jubilee clips on to begin with, but most of those have failed. These sort of clips that you crimp on. There's one on, not that one, I think it's on here. Oh, I have to keep nipping that back up, it comes loose after a little while. So I ended up swapping most of them for these. I can get one out. These are a lot better than Jubilee clips. You can break the bolt off them if you tighten them up too much, but they seem to do a lot better job. Anyway, carry on staining. I'm not happy with this stain. It's not like the nitrocellulose stuff that I asked for. Any runs, you try rubbing them in and it rubs the old stuff off. It's a bit like imagine tea without milk. That's what the nitrocellulose stuff's like. This stuff's like tea with milk. It's more like a paint. Any runs or any patches where it might be lighter, you try rubbing some more on and it removes the old stuff. I don't know, I'm not going to go into details. Keen care. They're done. Need to cut the backs, get them stained. I think there's enough. There's only about that much left. Get the backs stained, get some lacquer on them. If you haven't seen my other vids, this is a 3 metre track. When I bought this saw it came with two 1400mm tracks, and I knew should I say, that joining these 1400mm tracks to rip an 8-foot board would piss me off, so I bought 3 metre And these 1400, they're just not quite long enough for me to do 12-20 board, 4-foot board. So I cut a piece off one, joined it to there. That stays on there permanently. Those are super glued in. And I find that's nice size for 4 foot. That's 8 foot. Well, it's 3 metre, but it does 8 foot. And then the offcut from that, balanced on there. The offcut from that piece, that gives me an 1100mm piece. It's good for doors, short bits, things like that. I could do with a 2 metre track for like doors, cutting doors down and stuff, ripping, you know, long length doors. These are my clamps. The Irwin clamps that I've just cut the top off and welded on. That almost fits in there, but it's a sort of nice size thickness wise. I just had to grind off a little bit off the sides, but they slide in there nicely like that. I put a square mark on the factory cut corner because these boards are normally square. I didn't check, but just short of 3, 2130. Just short of 2130, so that's good. This is the back. It's a bit of rain, bit of water on there, but this is the back. I'm not spraying this. So I've got that square corner, a bit of work with that. So they're both dry now. It dries very fast, this, but like I say, I'm not too happy with this stain. It's very smooth because it dries fast. It doesn't swell the fibres of the wood up. But I'm going to give it a coat of sealer. It's very smooth actually. It's pretty much what the board was like before. I'm going to give that one a coat of lacquer. Let it sit there just for the moment. Do all these, and that should be dry enough to stand up like that one is, and I'll do the other one. Right, I've already shown you PU lacquer, 2-to-1, one of those to 2 of those, little bit of thinners, and the wood will go very slightly prickly. Like I say, it's very smooth stuff, but it'll go slightly prickly. Same again, it goes off very fast, so you don't really get any swelling. But I'll sand that smooth with probably about 320 paper and give it a second coat. That should be enough. And it leaves like a very matte satin finish, a bit like when you wax a piece of wood or something like that. It's not shiny anyway, just enough to seal it. And I'm going to use Dever Bliss gun again with 1.8mm nozzle. That's dried enough to stand it to one side. Get this other one done. It's quite nice, it's still very smooth. These aren't dried properly yet. I've got a fan up there, but still a bit damp here and there. There was already a little bit of thinners in the bottom of this tub. I've just given that a light sand with 120. Looks banded. The camera makes it look worse, I think. I'm going to give it another coat and that'll be it. I'll do this one. Second coat's dry. It's quite nice. Looks striped, but that's just a ply. Get this one, get a second coat on this one. I'm going to take them up to the house, get them out of the way. That's the first one. I've just turned it around so that I don't get overspray on it. But all this needs is 120 paper. That's all it needs to get the roughness off it. Don't know if you can hear this stuff. I've sanded, and about there I haven't, so can you hear the difference? Those have had one coat of lacquer, just on one side. Need to dry a little bit longer and then I'll turn them over, do the other side. These have all had just one coat of lacquer. I said earlier that I was using 320, I was going to use 320 but I'm not using 120. That's all it needs. I'm just using 320 soft side on the edges so that I don't take too much off. And then I'm stacking them there. I'm going to see if I can spray both sides with the final coat. We'll see about that. I just spoke to Symphony, one of the tech people, and this is nitrocellulose. That's the NC there. It is just very slightly different. The pigments that they put in it's more like a paste. That's what I was saying. It's like it's a bit more like a paint. It's a solvent with a paste pigment in it. but it's looking alright. You can add all sorts of things like retarders and whatever you to make it flow, so you can rub it in, but he couldn't go into details because there's so much to it, hard to explain. It's looking alright. A bit darker than I expected, but she's happy with it. I've took them boards up, and as she said, it's just a shelf in the basement for putting shit on. So those I've sanded up there, you see the slight colour difference. This one I've just sanded. Same again like the other little bits. 120 paper. I'll put the second and final coat on.